Hey guys, today I'm going to be reviewing Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 3, The Long Night. Woo! Oh boy, you guys, oh my freaking god. This episode is, or was perhaps, the most anticipated episode of this season, I think, in my opinion anyway. And it did not disappoint one bit. Oh my god, this episode, where to even begin? You guys, where to even begin? There was so much going on. There were so many different sequences. Everything initially kind of starts outside, and then you kind of get more into the courtyard, and then you get more into Winterfell. You're up in the sky at one point with the dragons. I mean, this whole battle that we've been anticipating for seasons now, I mean, it takes place just about everywhere here at Winterfell. And yeah, so many characters. Oh my god, it was seriously mind-blowing and epic and crazy and intense. And yeah, what were some of the words? I had to just write down some of my words here. I mean, yeah, intense, terrifying, claustrophobic. Oh my god, just the sheer amount of feels I was getting from this particular episode. My body was just acting very strangely on me because the whole time, seriously, you should have seen me the entire time I was watching this episode. I was sitting there like this the entire time, and yeah, I was physically kind of shivering and shaking at some points during this episode out of terror and anticipation and just the uncertainty of what the hell is going to happen by the time we reach the end of this episode. And it was a long episode, you guys. I believe it was an hour and 22 minutes, pretty much an hour and a half if you add in the little behind the scenes featurette at the very end. And oh god, this episode, I'm glad it was pretty much an hour and a half almost. You know, it really needed that time to flesh out this battle, really give you a sense that you're in the thick of this battle and kind of give you this sense of all hope nearly being lost. And this episode went in some interesting directions because I think for the past couple years now, since season 7 ended, I think we've all been anticipating certain things, and I think all of us went into this episode anticipating a certain outcome and anticipating certain character deaths, and this episode kind of it subverts that almost. It kind of flips things. Like, we know what you're anticipating, we know what you're expecting, and we're going to kind of flip some of that a little bit. Because for me, this entire time, I just did not think the Night King would die. And yeah, sure enough, what happens at the end of this episode, you guys? The Night King is killed. I was not anticipating that at all. I thought for sure the dead and the Night King, I thought for sure they were going to infiltrate Winterfell, take it over. There was going to be a tragic loss, there was going to be a tragic retreat, and that the Night King would be killed a little later in the season, because I was thinking he might be killed more like in either episode 5 or 6, if he died at all, So I was expecting and anticipating the worst heading into this episode. So yeah, I'm pretty shocked. Yeah, guys, I'm not even joking. I'm pretty shocked that the Night King is dead and that they solved this whole battle with the dead in episode 3. I'm very shocked that it's been solved because I thought it would go out for just a few more episodes, lead more up to Cersei. And, plus too, back in season 2, the season 2 finale, at the House of Black and White, remember Daenerys goes into the throne room of King's Landing, and remember everything's destroyed and there's snow falling and ash and whatnot. So yeah, I always kind of thought that was winter had came to King's Landing, but I'm starting to wonder now if the destruction of King's Landing might possibly be something else, if it's a result of maybe wildfire, more likely, that what we were seeing in that vision from the House of Black and White wasn't winter coming to King's Landing. It might be something else. I don't know. Or the vision was just a possibility of what could happen. This is one possibility, but it's not the end game possibility, you know what I mean? So, yeah, like I said, I was anticipating the Night King to not die, you guys. I was expecting a retreat from Winterfell. And then the other big thing, with this episode, definitely all of the big major character deaths. We've all been anticipating this. And I was pretty shocked and surprised by some of the people who did not die. Now, the people I correctly predicted would die, I definitely figured Ed would die. And yeah, I figured he would probably turn into a white as well, you guys. So I got Ed correct. I got Theon correct because his story felt complete. I got Jorah correctly. Who else? Oh, Beric. I got Beric Dondarrion correctly. So I got all of those, but there were some other people I was kind of like, oh my god, I can't believe they made it out alive. Yeah, like Tormund, I can't believe Tormund made it out alive, and Grey Worm especially, So there were a couple people that I thought would die in this episode, but they didn't, so there's still 3 episodes left. There's still 3 episodes left that they could die with whatever this big battle is to come with Stacie, because I think we're going to get one more additional battle with her. She is the big evil that we gotta go after now. And yeah, there were a couple other deaths that we'll talk about as I get further into this review, because I was like, oh my god, I can't believe this happened. So yeah, this episode kind of did some interesting things that I wasn't anticipating. Like, it's like I was anticipating certain things, but yeah, it's like it kind of went in the opposite direction for certain people, I suppose. And you guys, Tyrion, we gotta talk about Tyrion real quickly. Last week, when everybody was in the main hall and they were all getting drunk and telling tales, Tyrion at one point jokes and says, hey, maybe we'll all live. Everybody in that room, you guys, everybody who was in that room lived. Tyrion predicted it correctly. It's like Tyrion was kind of telling us something, or the writers, rather. The writers were kind of telling us something like, hey, all these people in this room, they're going to live for right now. So yeah, that happened. Yeah, you guys. So yeah, let's get going. I got a whole page of notes here. There is a lot to talk about. Just to be very general about the Battle of Winterfell. This whole sequence, you guys, was so incredibly well done. I think all the little, because we had like little battles here and there going on, starting outside of Winterfell and then moving a little closer to the walls of Winterfell, and then yeah, the retreat totally back into Winterfell, and then within Winterfell itself, and then ending in the Godswood, So yeah, all of these various different little battles, and I think it was all extremely well choreographed and set up, and yeah, it was never like really confusing, because a lot of times in these big medieval battle things, it could be a little confusing, but it helps that, anybody who looks dead, that's the enemy, it's not like it's two warring factions of people, because like the Battle of the Bastards, for instance, as much as I freaking loved the Battle of the Bastards, thing is though, it was all humans, and it's like, wait, who's on Team Jon and who's on Team Ramsay? Because it's like, do they even know? So it was a bit more clear and definitive, who was good, who was bad, and yeah, this whole episode, it was primarily told through music. I loved that the music composer, Ramin Djawadi, this is his episode in some ways. Miguel Sapochnik, he directed this episode. David Benioff and D.B. Wise, they wrote this episode. But to me, Ramin Djawadi, the music composer, this this is like his episode, you guys, because for the most part, this entire episode is told through the music. There's barely any dialogue in it. We have little sequences of dialogue and some one-liners, but for the most part, it's all done through the music and no dialogue. And I tell you what, that is incredibly impressive to me. So yeah, bravo to Ramin Djawadi for composing this powerful soundtrack to this episode. And another thing that I thought was incredibly well choreographed with this episode, you know, it's at night. This whole episode takes place at night, and you know, there's no natural lighting other than just, you know, torches and stuff. And I really liked how they lit this episode on occasion, because you know, there's the one part Melisandre comes in and lights up the weapons of the Dothraki, and you can, everything lights up right there, and you can see the progress of the Dothraki through their lit weapons, you know, as they charge towards the dead and whatnot. So I liked how that was staged with the lighting of the weapons for the Dothraki, and then obviously whenever the dragons would come in and blow flame out, you know, that would provide some further lighting to the scenes. So yeah, I liked how this episode was lit to bring in some lighting during the battle, you know, since it does take place at night and whatnot. Okay, okay, let's get into the specifics of the episode. Yeah, guys, so much going on. This is mostly going to be me going on and on about, wow, that was epic, that was intense, I was terrified. So, when we start the episode, we seriously don't even get no dialogue until like a good 5 minutes into the episode, because we see like Sam walking around preparing, we see Tyrion walking around preparing, we see all these different groups getting into their positions. It's the build-up, it's the anticipation, and that's what builds up that initial terror at first, and yeah, where I just immediately started shivering from anticipation. And yeah, like the first bit of dialogue we get is from Ed. I think Ed says something like, oh, what does he say? I think he says, oh, for fuck's sake, or something. Like, I think that's the first bit of dialogue, and it comes from Ed. So yeah, we see everyone getting into the position, and you know, we don't immediately get the dead arriving. You know, it's not the dead who arrive first, it is Melisandre. Yeah, guys, Melisandre of all people. I tell you what, I wish I had not watched the opening credits, because I think the opening credits spoiled Carice Van Houten that Melisandre was coming back. And yeah, we've all been waiting and anticipating Melisandre to make her big comeback. So Melisandre arrives in amazing fashion, as she does. And the first thing that she does, she lights up the weapons of the Dothraki, which was a freaking amazing sequence, you guys. That was epic. I loved it. I can gush about that for the longest time, you guys. So, she heads into Winterfell. Of course, the first person she runs into is Davos, and I think there's that part of Davos like, oh, I really want to kill you, lady. And yeah, she immediately informs Davos, hey, don't bother, you know, I know you hate me, I know you want to kill me, just, dude, don't bother, because I'm going to be dead by the time this battle is over. So, yeah, we get our first kind of bit of foreshadowing there, and I think to me the whole time I was like, oh my god, is she going to get killed by a White Walker, or is, yeah, will Davos kill her by the end, or yeah, would Arya kill her by the end? So yeah, I think I was expecting the worst for Melisandre by the end, that she would like be physically killed, you know, I was not expecting that ending with her, but yeah, we'll get to that later. So yeah, she runs into Davos, she sees Arya from afar, and then yeah, we get to one of the big first battle sequences, and the Dothraki, head out there, they're hollering and screaming, it's pretty badass, their weapons are up in the air, flaming, and oh my god, there's Jorah kind of leading the charge, and Ghost. We gotta talk about Ghost for a minute, you guys. I don't know what to think about how Ghost was used in this episode, because I'm a bit distraught about the whole thing. This whole sequence was so well done, because there's Jorah, he's riding, and yeah, up alongside him comes Ghost, looking ferocious and badass himself, and I love, once again, I loved how this was staged, because you're back at Winterfell and you see the weapons, the flaming weapons, and almost kind of en masse, the lights go out. You know, the lights kind of all go out at once, save for a scattering of some lights from the weapons, and then eventually it's just completely pitch black out there. And it's like, oh my god, did everybody just die? Did we just lose all of the Dothraki? Did we just lose Jorah and Ghost? So there's this moment of silence. It's eerie and chilling, and yet in the meantime, Jon and Daenerys are up high with the dragons, kind of watching from afar, and it's kind of like, oh my god, what just happened? Because you can't even see anything out there. You know, you can't see anything, you can't hear anything. And eventually the Dothraki do retreat. There's just a small scattering of survivors. Jorah does make it back, but where's Ghost? What happened to Ghost, you guys? Are we led to believe that we lost Ghost? And it's a shame if Ghost just died, you guys. It's a real shame if he just died and we didn't really get to see it or say goodbye, you know? There's a part of me that I'm hoping Ghost is not dead and that he'll just kind of wander up. He'll wander up in next week's episode, but I highly doubt it. It's seriously, I'm very distraught with Ghost, because I was expecting a lot more with Ghost, to see him really do some damage, and we didn't get to see that, unfortunately. So, like I said, in the meantime, Jon and Daenerys, they're up high with the dragons, watching all this go down. Yeah, Jon is essentially saying, hey, we're waiting for the Night King, he's got to be here somewhere, and the thing is, you know, they don't see the Night King currently, but yet Daenerys is given that line of, you know, the dead are already here. So it doesn't really matter, you know, we need to step into action here and help everybody while we're waiting for the Night King, because in the meantime we're losing a lot of people. So yeah, it's after this, once the Dothraki, the small scattering of Dothraki come back, that's when we get the first big wave of the dead arriving, you guys. And have you guys seen, like, World War Z? A lot of this episode reminded me of something like World War Z with Brad Pitt, which was like a zombie apocalypse movie. Just the sheer force and number of the dead just pounding into that front line of all of our fighters. And yeah, I thought for sure, you guys, I thought we were about to lose just about everybody right here. I thought we were going to lose Jaime and Brienne and Podrick and Tormund and, yeah, Jorah. I thought everybody was about to be wiped out right here, you guys. I don't even know how they made it out. So then, yeah, we get a few minutes of that. Finally, the dragons swoop in. We see Daenerys and Jon on Rhaegal and Drogon, which is excellent. They come in, they wipe out a couple layers of the dead. You know, I just don't understand why they just didn't keep blowing fire. Seriously, it's like they did kind of a couple sweeps of fire and that was it. It's like, you have these big badass dragons, use them, Jon and Daenerys. Seriously, I was getting frustrated with the lack of use with the dragons, because it's like they were more waiting for the Night King. You know, it seemed to me that they were more waiting for the Night King, and it's like they didn't want to waste their energies on the dead for some reason. I don't know, it was a bit frustrating, because it's like, keep using the dragons, people. There's still hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dead coming. So yeah, and in the meantime, while Jon and Daenerys are kind of doing all this, that's when we see the big line of all of the Night King's commanders. And in the background, we see this big winter storm coming up. I'm not sure who brought that. Was it the commanders, or was it the Night King, or a combination of both of them? Either way, they bring in the big winter storm. And yeah, this is the perfect distraction for Jon and Daenerys, because they can't see shit. They can barely even hold on to their dragons. They can't see anything. And yeah, I mean, they can't really even see what's going on down there. And I guess that's another reason why they weren't really using the dragons that much, if you think about it. If they started blowing fire and it hit their own people, I suppose, if you want to think about it that way. And then, yeah, it's in the midst of this big fight that happens. Yeah, Sam and Ed are fighting side by side. Ed saves Sam at one point. I believe Ed is kind of one of the first people to die in this episode. You know, besides Ghost, as far as a human character goes, goes. Yeah, Ed, a named character that we have been with for seasons, he is the first character to go. Oh, poor Ed, it was pretty sad. You guys, because I love Ed and his personality. But yeah, he went out fighting, saving Sam. I'll tell you what, Sam was going to be a traumatized wreck after this whole episode. So yeah, this is too much. The dead, it's too much. Even with Danny and John helping out as much as they can, everyone has to retreat. So, yeah, a lot of this was in front of Winterfell, in front of the trenches. So this is where they go back a couple yards, I suppose, and they get behind the trenches, you know, waiting for this next wave. And Davos is trying to signal to Jon and Daenerys, hey, light up the trenches, and they can't see. Like I said, because of that storm, they can't see. This is where Melisandre comes out, you guys. To me, Melisandre, if there had to be, like, a most valuable player to this episode, you know, I know we have Arya, you know, we'll talk about Arya later, but still, besides Arya, let's give some love to somebody else. I think one of the most valuable players to this particular episode is definitely Melisandre, because not only does she come in and light up the weapons for the Dothraki, she comes in at this moment when things are looking pretty rough and tense and all hope is lost. She comes in and she lights up the trenches, and that helps kill out a little spread of the dead, and that gives all of these characters a moment's reprieve from the fighting as the trenches are going. And not only is this a reprieve for the characters, but it's a reprieve for the action and a reprieve for us, the viewer, I think. And yeah, by this point, I had to kind of pause and look and see how far we had gotten into the episode by this point. And by this point, we were a good 30 minutes into the episode. So yeah, we go down to the crypts of Winterfell to see what all those characters are up to. Yeah, Tyrion being very impatient. He wants to do something. Yeah, he fought at Blackwater. He was pretty amazing at Blackwater, you know, considering his size. And yeah, Sansa pretty much tells him how it is, like, dude, if you go out there, you're going to die. That's why we're all down here. All of us, we can't do anything. We're not fighters. That's why we're all down here. And the only thing we can do is, you know, essentially just pray and hope. So yeah, I love that little moment there. Just Sansa telling how it is. And yeah, she even brings up an interesting remark here to Tyrion. This is something I've been waiting for. I've been waiting for some sort of dive into their relationship, because we didn't get that back in episode 1. And yeah, she does bring up that, you know, we can't, you know, remarry, I suppose, and he's asking why, and she says, because of divided loyalties, you would be conflicted, you know, between me and between Daenerys and whatnot. So that was an interesting moment between them, and an interesting time to kind of bring it up, you know, whether or not they should remarry or not. Maybe they will. I don't know. I would love if Tyrion and Sansa got back together. You know, I think they work well together in their own way, and they have a certain understanding towards one another, you know. Okay, so in the meantime, while we do have this reprieve, let's go to Bran and Theon. Whew, a lot of this, God, you guys, I was just full of nerves the entire time with Theon, because it's like, it felt so obvious Theon was going at some point, you know, and it was just kind of a matter of, well, when will he go? So yeah, like we found out last week, Theon's up there to protect Bran, and we get the line that I believe we saw from the trailer, and, you know, Theon kind of starts talking, but Bran cuts him off and says, everything brought you to where you are now, where you belong, home. And that's just such a beautiful thing right there, you know. Theon was such an evil bastard. He took over Winterfell. He was really cruel to Bran and Rickon. He knows that. You know, he's tried to come to terms with it. He's tried to come to some sort of reconciliation. And it's kind of like in this moment, you know, Bran doesn't care. You know, Bran no longer cares about little petty things like that anymore. And yeah, him saying everything has brought you to where you belong. Home, you know, this is all Theon has needed to hear, I think, and I think this is enough for his personal redemption, that, yeah, Winterfell is my home, I am here, and I'm going to die trying to protect these people. So yeah, a really nice moment with Bran and Theon. And it's at this moment that Bran is like, well, I gotta go now. And Theon's like, go where? And Bran, he wargs into the ravens so he can get I guess a better eye of, what's going on out there. And yeah, I guess this is the arrival of the Night King that we're seeing, that the Night King is just now kind of arriving to this whole thing. And yeah, there he is up in the air on Viserion, looking really creepy and terrifying, you guys. So we go back to the battle. We've had a few minutes of a reprieve here to kind of get some dialogue, and the Night King, I guess, he orders all of his dead army to like make a little bridge over the fire, like throw yourselves in the fire because the bodies will build up, obviously, the bodies will build up and kind of wipe out the fire. So yeah, the dead, they all start making like a bridge so they can get through the fire, and we get the next big wave of attack and fighting and battle and whatnot. And not only do they get through the burning trenches, but now they are climbing on top of each other to get up the walls of Winterfell. Once again, very World War Z-like, if you happen to watch that movie, you guys. They're climbing up the walls, getting over, and yeah, they're in Winterfell now, you guys. Winterfell has officially been breached pretty much. And yeah, all of our characters, you guys, you can clearly tell that they're worn out and exhausted, physically and emotionally, and this just keeps coming, this endless, this unending bombardment of the dead, And yeah, in the meantime, yeah, there's so much fire going around, and yeah, the Hound, I had a feeling the Hound was just, he was going to have himself a panic attack in the middle of this fight, and sure enough, he is having a panic attack. And he kind of just goes off to the side for a moment himself, and Beric is just trying everything in his power to, like, Hound, come on, you gotta fight, man. And yeah, Arya, in the meantime, Arya finally kicks into action. We get to see her new fancy weapon in use, so badass. Yeah, you can tell Maisie Williams trained long and hard, trying to perfect twirling around and fighting things, because yeah, it was really graceful, it was really graceful and smooth, and yeah, you can tell that she had practiced for this. So yeah, Arya has her really badass moment that I loved, and yeah, but the thing is, even she starts to get bombarded by all of this, and we see her kind of getting chased around, and this is what finally kicks the Hound into action, because he sees Arya in peril. And I had a feeling this would happen, I had a feeling the Hound would kind of have a moment of panic, and it would take either, Arya or Sansa or somebody to, for him to kind of knock out of that and return to the fight. So yeah, we'll come back to Arya in just a second. In the meantime, you guys, let's see, where am I at? I'm making sure I'm covering everything in my notes here. Okay, Lyanna Mormont, you guys. Let's take a moment. You guys, let's take a moment for little, brave, badass Lyanna Mormont. I don't even know what to say. I did not predict that Lyanna would die at all. I'm not joking, I was 100% positive that Lyanna would make it out of this fight. I just didn't see any reason they would kill her. And man, talk about a shock. This is probably the most shocking thing that happened in this episode, is Lyanna Mormont's tragic but heroic death. And yeah, as the dead are coming in, the front gate is knocked down, I guess. In comes this giant. He knocks Lyanna to the side, but she bravely stands back up, yells at this thing, and she stands her ground. She doesn't run away, and the giant picks her up. He's crushing her, but she's able to get her little dagger out and just ram it into that giant's eye, and she goes out in a brave, heroic fashion. It really just got to me, because she's this little girl. She's been so brave and tough, and yeah, for her to get crushed, you guys, brutally by this giant. Oh my god, seriously. It was a lot. You guys, it was a lot with Leon. Out of all the people that died in this episode, I think hers was the roughest, because I think none of us were expecting that, to be quite honest. And I liked what David Benioff and D.B. Wise were saying about her death and the little behind the scenes featurette at the end of the episode, because they were talking about that they really wanted to kind of showcase that parallel or whatever with her, because, you know, there's a big giant and she's one of the smallest people fighting, and yeah, kind of that dynamic, you know, the biggest thing versus the little thing, and she takes out that big thing, you know. So yeah, I really liked that. You know, I didn't like her dying, but I liked kind of how it was staged. Okay, this is where we get to the big epic fight in the sky with Drogon and Viserion and Rhaegal. Oh my god, this was awesome. This whole sequence was so well done. This is why Ghost got no screen time, you guys. This is pretty much why poor Ghost got no screen time, unfortunately, because the whole CGI budget was going towards this dragon fight in the sky, because it was intense and scary and kind of like, oh my god, is Jon or Daenerys, is one of them going to fall off and die at this moment? So yeah, I liked that three-way battle up in the sky with the dragons. So freaking good, you guys. Because yeah, I mean, there's a lot of the fighting going on within the winter storm, but then every now and then they'll all kind of peek out of there, you know, up into the clear night sky, and it was kind of hauntingly beautiful at the same time. So let's go to Arya, you guys. Arya seriously had one of the most terrifying sequences in this whole episode. Her whole sequence felt like I was watching an episode of The Walking Dead, not gonna lie, because it was super terrifying. Arya's sequence was kind of one of those moments that I was like, I was holding my breath, you know, because I felt like if I breathed, I felt like the White Walkers would hear me and then go attack Arya or something. So yeah, this whole moment with Arya as she's wandering through the inner hallways of Winterfell, trying to get past the dead. It's all done, and it's quiet and silent. There's no music. Seriously, that whole sequence in the library, I was on the edge of my seat the entire damn time. I was like, oh my god, because she would keep going around different stacks and would have to keep turning around. I was like, oh my gosh, she's not going to get out of this. The good news is that Arya does eventually get out of the library. Thank God. Seriously, bravo. Whoever choreographed that whole sequence, I don't know if it was Miguel Sapochnik who necessarily choreographed all that, but yeah, seriously, one of the most terrifying, just like clenched up like this in my seat, and you're like, oh my god, Arya. So Arya eventually gets out of that damn library, thank God. And she does run into the Hound and Beric Dondarrion, and yeah, there's a chase down the hallways as they're bombarded by a bunch of the dead. Beric valiantly and heroically, he gets stabbed multiple times. He's practically eaten almost. And there goes Beric Dondarrion, you guys. Beric is kind of one of the next big characters to die. And yeah, like I said, I've been anticipating Beric to die at some point, because yeah, Thoros of Myr is no longer there to resurrect him. Everything was bringing Beric to this moment to die, I think. And yeah, no more resurrections for Beric Dondarrion, you guys, but he went out like a true heroic hero. So yeah, goodbye, Beric Dondarrion. I loved your bromance with all the other guys. So yeah, the Hound and Arya, they take refuge in, was that the main hall? I couldn't tell what room they were in. It almost looked like the main hall. And Melisandre, the whole time I kind of forgot about Melisandre, and then I was like, oh wait a minute, where is Melisandre? There she is. She's in this room with the Hound and Arya. So we finally get a confrontation with Arya and Melisandre that I think we've all been anticipating for a long time, since season 2, I think? Or season 3. You know, when did Arya and Melisandre first have their interaction? I can't remember if that was season 2 or 3. It might have been season 3, possibly. I don't know. But yeah, their last interaction was when she took Gendry and put the leeches on him, you know, to make that spell or whatever, so that all of the kings could get killed through his blood or whatever. So yeah, Melisandre and Arya, they recall that conversation with one another. And yeah, Melisandre, she seemed terrified of Arya. When back in season 2 or 3, whenever that was, Melisandre seemed genuinely concerned and kind of frightened of Arya because she saw that potential. She saw death in Arya. She saw what Arya, I think, was capable of. And yeah, kind of bringing up that line to her that she said to her, you will close eyes forever, whether they're blue or brown or green or whatever. And yeah, she highlights the blue eyes, which I guess we're led to believe the blue eyes, that being of the dead, or more specifically, the Night King's blue eyes. And it's after this moment, once Melisandre kind of brings up the eyes, and then she says, "What do we say to the god of death?" And Arya responds with, "Not today." It's so awesome. And then she takes off. Arya takes off. And we don't see Arya for a long little while here, you guys. And it kind of reached a point that I forgot. I totally forgot about Arya and where she ran off to. But we'll get to Arya later. So then, yeah, we go back to Theon and Bran. We see a little bit of a skirmish there as some more fighting is going on. And then meanwhile, up in the sky, the Night King finally falls off Viserion. He's on the ground. And we see this moment that it's like, and Drogon, he spews out fire all over the Night King. There's this moment of anticipation, like, oh, is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead? And the longer it went on, the longer we went on, I was like, oh, he ain't dead. I was like, this is too easy. There is no way he's dead, because even back when the Night King, invaded the Weird Tree beyond the wall to go attack Bran, remember the Children of the Forest, they were sitting there throwing out stuff and making like a flame perimeter. But the Night King walked straight through that perimeter. He kind of just walked through it and parted it like Moses, like it was the Red Sea or something. So yeah, I was like, oh yeah, the Night King ain't dead. Because I don't think fire can really kill him at all. So sure enough, the flames kind of clear up, and there's the Night King. He ain't dead. It was like, oh no. And in the meantime, the Night King, he takes this moment, and he slowly starts lifting his arms. And here comes the dead, you guys. Here comes all of the damn dead reawakening. And John is trying his best. Poor John is trying his best to run as fast as he can to get to the Night King. Unfortunately, he stopped like feet short of trying to get to the Night King. It's just absolutely hopeless. So, yeah, we do. We see Ed come back as a white. We see Lyanna come back as a white. Fortunately, what I'm glad about, I'm glad we didn't see anybody kill Ed or kill Lyanna, you know what I mean? We just kind of saw that their eyes went blue, they came back, but yeah, they never went back to them again, which I'm kind of shocked about. They never went back to them. And then it's at this point that the Night King's commanders, they all finally come on in looking badass. I love the commanders. It's like they don't even really do any fighting. They just come on in casually like, hey, what's up? And in the meantime, in the crypts, you guys, let's go back down to the crypts. There was a huge fan theory this whole past week because in last week's episode, there were numerous references to, oh, the crypts are safe. Everybody get in the crypts. You'll be safe. They repeated it over and over. So there was a big fan theory that the crypts aren't going to be safe. Something's going to happen down there, especially if the Night King does raise the dead, and there's a lot of dead people down there in the crypts. So sure enough, dead people in the crypts do start coming out of their little tombs and start attacking all of the innocent women and children down there. And oh my god, this was seriously just terrifying as well, you guys. And yeah, we see a couple people get killed. It's mass panic. It is sheer mass panic as all these people just kind of take off, because none of these people are fighters. None of these people are fighters. That's why they're down there. That's what Sansa was even saying to Tyrion. And then in the meantime, let's head back up. Dany kind of lands at one point. She should not have landed. Why she landed, I don't know why. Damn girl, you got yourself in trouble, because sure enough, here comes a bunch of whites. They climb on top of Drogon. She falls off of Drogon. I thought Drogon was dying. in this moment, you guys. He was getting repeatedly stabbed and kind of bitten by all these whites. I thought for sure Drogon was dying, and I was not prepared to lose Drogon. And so, yeah, Dany, she is down. She's not a fighter either. You know, Dany has always had the protection of her Unsullied, or Jorah, and she's always had that protection of Drogon. You know, that's how Daenerys fights. She's not like a physical fighter at all. So yeah, here's Daenerys. It's like, oh my dear God, what's going to happen here? Are we about to lose Daenerys now too? And she is saved just in the nick of time by Jorah. Yeah, guys. Thank God. I was like, whew, whew. And we go back to Jon. This was an amazing sequence with Jon as he's kind of getting back into Winterfell, and there's just the fighting, the massive fighting and the mass of dead. It's like, what can you do? He's just kind of running around as best he can, kind of fighting who he can. Yeah, he sees all of his friends fighting. I love this whole sequence, you know, showing everybody fighting, everybody being in peril. And yeah, you also see like just bodies just falling from the battlements as I guess they're climbing over the walls of Winterfell and whatnot. It's pure chaos. You know, it is absolutely pure chaos, and so well done. And yeah, we go back to the crypts. Ooh, you guys, this moment between Sansa and Tyrion, this was one of the moments that really made me tear up the most. I thought we were about to lose Sansa and Tyrion. You guys, they're there hiding behind one of the crypts or the tombs for protection, and they kind of just are just sitting there, breathing heavily, staring at one another. You know, a lot of things kind of being unspoken there between them. And yeah, he picks up her hand and he kisses her hand. I thought that was just such a sweet moment right there where he kisses her hand, and I thought, because then what happens next, they both take out their little daggers. They both take out their daggers, and I was like, oh my God, are they going to commit suicide? You guys, I seriously, a moment passed in my head. I thought they were going to kill each other. You know, like, we're not going to be killed by the dead. You know, we're going to die on our terms. So there was a moment, I'm not joking, you guys, I thought they were both about to kill themselves. But no, they're not pulling out their daggers to kill themselves. They're pulling out their daggers to kind of make a run for it, to try and find the other survivors. And yeah, there is another group of survivors, because it looks like Missandei and Varys are together, and I think that little girl who had the scar on her face that was talking to Davos, I think she's there, and Gilly and the baby are there. So yeah, somehow there's a small little gathering of people who are not dead yet, and it's all of our main characters, it seems. And then yeah, you guys, let's go to the Godswood. This confrontation with the Night King and Theon and Bran. Wow, once again, I got to applaud Ramin Djawadi for his music here, and I gotta applaud Miguel Sapochnik for his directing during this particular moment, because here comes, it's all done in slow-mo. It's all done in slow-mo with the music. Here comes the Night King, followed by his commanders. They're heading into the Godswood. So intense, you guys. And Theon, he kind of turns to Bran. Bran tells him it's okay, and Theon charges towards the Night King. It's like Theon knows that he's dying in this moment. You know, he knows good and well he's dying in this moment, but he's not going to stop and be a coward. You know, he's been running his whole life. He's been a coward his whole life, and this is his moment of redemption. You know, this is his moment of redemption. He charges the Night King. The Night King does kill Theon Greyjoy, you guys. It's emotional, heartbreaking, but yeah, it's kind of one of those moments like, yes, Theon, yes. And I think, to me anyway, you know, Theon is definitely redeemed in the viewer's eyes. And yeah, there goes Theon Greyjoy, you guys. Tragic. There goes the possibility of shipping Theon and Sansa. And the thing is, I think Theon also provides a couple extra vital seconds that we need, because, you know, as we know, because Arya comes in later to this thing, Theon, his death and sacrifice really provides those vital seconds to allow Arya a few more seconds to catch up and get there, you know? So yeah, Theon's death is not pointless, I don't think. So in the meantime, after Theon has died, the Night King approaches Bran, once again, just all done in slow-mo, all done just through that music. Bran and the Night King just staring at each other. And just as you think Bran's about to die, because I seriously thought Bran was a goner. I was like, oh my god, we're going to get another Stark death. Just as you think Bran is about to die, here comes Arya. Arya just flies into the screen, you guys. Arya just flies into the screen out of freaking nowhere. She lands on the Night King. He turns around, and I thought I was even concerned about Arya in this moment, because I think he had her by the throat, if I'm not mistaken. I thought he was about to crush her windpipe and kill her. But before that even happens, we see her, because I think her arm's up like this with the cat's paw dagger. She drops it, and yeah, down here, she catches it, and we see her like plunge it right into the Night King, right where the children of the forest, stabbed him, that we saw in that flashback, that turned him into the Night King to begin with. So yeah, pretty much right there in the same location. So as soon as this happens, you guys, it's like, oh my freaking god, and the Night King explodes, his commanders explode, we see the entire dead army explode, we see poor Viserion die his last death, and that's it. The battle is over, and they've won, and that's all it took, was to kill the Night King, like they were anticipating. And I did mention last week that I really didn't want Arya to kill the Night King, but because I really wanted Jon to do it, because there's more of a personal relationship there between Jon and the Night King. But I mean, I can understand why Arya did it, why the writers and the directors, why the whole productive team, why they wanted Arya to have this moment, I suppose. And yeah, I mean, if you think back to last season, when, because Littlefinger had the dagger, he gave it to Bran, and then what does Bran do? Bran immediately gives that dagger to Arya. So I feel like Bran, he had some sort of snippet of something in his mind, like, I don't need this dagger. This dagger needs to go to Arya, and I think he knew this entire time that Arya would be the one to kill the Night King, So it's all been set up, if you think about it. It's all been set up since last season with the cat's paw dagger specifically. Arya would not only kill Littlefinger with it, but yeah, she would kill the Night King with it. So that's it. It ended. And then in the meantime, I mean, it's still not over. It's still not over once the Night King dies, because then Jorah, he's been brutally injured and mauled, and there he is with Daenerys, and he dies, and she's there holding him and crying him, and I was waiting for him to have one final Khaleesi. I think he was trying to say Khaleesi to her, but he couldn't, because then he died. I think that would have really got me if he had said Khaleesi. So Jorah goes out as a heroic, brave soldier in this moment. A perfect ending, I think, for Jorah. Kind of a completion of his story, his arc, his redemptive path. And I tell you, I've been saying this since season 1, you guys, because I think I've always assumed Jorah would die at some point, and the manner in which he would die, it would be dying to protect and save Daenerys, the woman that he's always loved, but she can never love him back, and it was always one-sided and whatnot, and yeah, just a beautiful moment there, and yeah, fantastic acting by Ian Glenn and Emilia Clarke, and yeah, to add on top of the emotion, you guys, here comes Drogon, who's not dead, thank God, and he lays there, and he kind of wraps his wings around Daenerys and Jorah, and yet, like, Drogon is feeling that pain too, Drogon is, he can feel that pain coming off of his mistress or whatever, and it really added to that gut-wrenching emotional tug there. And then, so yeah, we move on from Jorah, and yeah, this whole episode has a very quiet ending in some ways, because yeah, it ends with Jorah dying, and then it ends, and we see Davos, he's watching Melisandre head out of the gates of Winterfell to the fields of Winterfell, and we see that the sun is coming up, and there's Melisandre, she's out there, she takes off her necklace, and we see that she does age. You know, we see that her hair goes gray, and yeah, her clothes are kind of falling off of her because she's such a frail old woman, as we know, and she collapses. Melisandre just collapses out there and dies, and that's how the episode ends. We're left with Melisandre's death, interesting enough, which I'm not sure what we're supposed to take from that, with her moment being the last thing we see. You know, it's an interesting choice. Out of everything that's happened in this whole episode, it's an interesting choice to end with Melisandre. But as for her as a character, I mean, her death, I guess, is supposed to signify that, you know, I think her arc is complete, because she has lived her whole life, you know, following the Red God, following that whole thing with, what is it, Azor Ahai or whatever, and she's made mistake after mistake after mistake, and yeah, thinking that she's supposed to be following a specific path, but always misinterpreting her visions and misinterpreting the signs, you know, because she follows Stannis at first, but she fails with Stannis. You know, Stannis is not who she thought he was, and he didn't become what she thought he would become, so yeah, she loses Stannis, and yeah, she almost kind of thinks she loses Jon, you know, she thinks she almost fails Jon, but then she does, she resurrects Jon. So, and then yeah, everything with Shireen and her confrontation with Davos, and yeah, this is her arc coming to a conclusion, I think, and her being at peace, I think, and her just being done, and her feeling like she has no purpose no more. Her purpose, she's come to realize, was just to get to this Battle of Winterfell and help defeat the dead, you know. And yeah, she came in a major way, you know. She may not have killed the Night King, but she still helped out tremendously in her own way and redeemed herself, I think. So yeah, that was a really good conclusion there with Melisandre's death. Yeah, just to go back to the Night King, you guys, seriously, I just can't believe the Night King is dead here by episode 3, and yeah, what does this mean for the remaining 3 episodes? Because yeah, we've not seen King's Landing or Cersei for the last 2 episodes. You know, we've seen none of that. It's all been strongly focused on Winterfell. So yeah, what can we expect for the final 3 episodes? Because I'm assuming we're gonna get some other battle or skirmish with Cersei and her forces, because yeah, we've not seen the Golden Company in action just yet, or the Greyjoy fleet. So I'm expecting a lot more death. You know, everybody who did not die in this episode that I thought would die, I think they're all going to die later, because I still feel like Tormund's going to die, and even Grey Worm. I'm seriously going to be surprised if Grey Worm makes it out of this whole thing. So it's like, I know Jon and Daenerys have got to go down to King's Landing, but yeah, what does that mean for all these other characters? Because I feel like Sansa, I feel like we've got to wrap up the Vale somehow, you know, because like Robb and Aaron, I feel like we gotta wrap up Robb and Aaron in some fashion, and that might involve Sansa, I don't know. Because yeah, I just don't really see Sansa playing a big role in these next 3 episodes, unfortunately. And yeah, Jaime and Tyrion have got to have our confrontation with Cersei. I think maybe even Arya. Yeah, the Hound has to fight his brother. So I think a lot of these characters, we're going to have next week's episode, the aftermath of the battle, and yeah, it's going to end, I think, with everybody kind of going their separate ways, so we can conclude whatever loose ends we gotta conclude, you know? So yeah, you guys, this episode, goddamn, intense, action-packed, emotional, just all sorts of feelings. I mean, you're feeling everything during this episode. And once again, just I applaud the directing by Miguel Sapochnik. I applaud the writing by David Benioff and D.B. Wise, because, yeah, I mean, there wasn't much dialogue, but still just, they wrote out the script. You know, they wrote out what needed to happen. So yeah, still amazing writing by them. Yeah, once again, I mean, I think the biggest person that helped with this episode is definitely Ramin Djawadi with his musical composition. You know, his music is what gave this episode the feels, I think, and really told the story. So yeah, amazing episode, you guys. So that is it for my very lengthy review for this episode, you guys. A lot happened, a lot went down, and yeah, there's a lot of questions out. Where do we go from here? You know, where do we go from here with the final 3 episodes of the season? So you guys, in the comments below, please talk to me about this episode. What were some things that you loved? Some things that you might not have liked that much? What did you think of all the deaths? Did people die that you were expecting to die? Just let me know your thoughts down below. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye, guys.